You think you own everything, Richard? Emily Carter whispered to herself as she stood at the edge of the grand mansion steps, the rain drizzling against the marble and the wind tugging at her coat, her hand gripping the envelope that contained the proof of her true ownership, the deeds that would turn the tables in a way he could never anticipate. Every step she took echoed against the quiet estate, the sound bouncing off the columns and into the empty halls behind her, a chilling reminder of how alone she had been in this marriage. While she carried more than just herself but the life growing within her, 7 months along, and yet stronger than she had ever felt, the headlights of the limousine that had just pulled away casting long shadows across the driveway. Richard Lawson's figure disappearing inside with the mistress smiling behind the tinted glass, oblivious to the storm brewing both outside and inside. Emily's breath caught as she opened the envelope. The papers crisp and precise, each one carrying the weight of years of unrecognized efforts, hidden investments, and smart moves she had made quietly, under his nose, while he assumed control, the irony making her lips curl into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. She could feel her pulse quicken, a mixture of excitement and controlled fury. Knowing this was the moment where patience met opportunity, she stepped forward onto the wet stones, the sound of her heels muted by the puddles, each one a small drumbeat counting down to her next move. She paused to glance back at the ornate iron gates that had confined her in more ways than one, now seeming like a distant memory, and then forward to the grand entrance, the tall windows reflecting a stormy sky that mirrored the turmoil in her mind. She remembered the countless evenings spent planning, revising, and waiting for the right moment, the silent dinners, the overlooked contributions to the estate, the whispers of consultants and lawyers that went unheard, all of it culminating in the truth she now held. Emily reached the large double doors, the polished brass handles glinting in the dim light. She inhaled deeply, centering herself, feeling the weight of her belly and the growing determination in her chest. This wasn't just about property or revenge. It was about reclaiming her voice, her identity, and her future. As she pushed the doors open, the familiar scent of the mansion's interior wrapped around her, mingling with the rain and the tension, the floors gleaming under the crystal chandeliers, each reflection a reminder of the life she had lived and the one she was about to claim. Emily's eyes scanned the empty hall, imagining Richard and the mistress discovering that everything they assumed belonged to them had been hers all along. Her pulse steady, she let the envelope dangle in one hand, the other pressed lightly to her belly as a reminder of the life she was protecting and the strength she had gathered. A faint smile played on her lips, not of malice, but of a quiet triumph, the kind that comes after long endurance and careful calculation. She took another step, feeling the cool marble under her shoes, each movement deliberate, purposeful, and confident. The mansion, once a symbol of confinement and control, now felt like a stage set for the revelation she was about to orchestrate. And as she ascended the main staircase, the sound of the rain outside mingling with the subtle creak of the steps beneath her, Emily Carter knew this was the calm before the storm, the poised moment where everything she had been building would finally unfold. And the envelope, heavy with truth, rested in her hand, a silent weapon against assumptions, ignorance, and pride. The air thick with anticipation, each heartbeat syncing with the distant rumble of thunder, signaling that change was near and that the world, or at least Richard, was about to witness what it truly meant to underestimate her. Emily Carter paused at the top of the grand staircase, her eyes scanning the vast hallway below, the chandelier lights flickering gently as the storm outside sent occasional flashes across the tall windows. The mansion silent except for the soft patter of rain on the marble floors. She could feel the weight of the envelope in her hand, each paper inside holding years of decisions, investments, and careful planning that Richard Lawson had never noticed. Her pulse steady as she descended slowly, deliberately, each step measured, her heels clicking softly against the polished surface. And as she reached the landing, she imagined the expression on Richard's face when he realized the truth. The years of assumption and control he had believed to be his own dissolving instantly into astonishment. She allowed herself a small, satisfied breath, the kind that comes when patience and strategy meet opportunity, the sound mingling with the faint echoes of the mansion and the distant rumble of thunder. Emily moved toward the large drawing room where the main office and archives were kept, her gaze flicking to the portraits lining the walls, ancestors who had built the estate, each one seemingly observing her progress, reminding her of the legacy she now wielded. She pushed open the heavy double doors to the office, the scent of polished wood and leather books filling her senses, a gentle reminder of the life she had been quietly managing even while Richard assumed control. She carefully placed the envelope on the oak desk, the seal catching the dim light, and opened it slowly, letting each document unfold in a manner that felt ceremonial, the titles, deeds, and certificates revealing her ownership in black and white, every property, every parcel of land, every building within the estate, meticulously listed and legally recognized, the reality settling in like a tangible weight, empowering her with a calm determination. She took a moment to breathe, resting her hand lightly on her belly, feeling the life growing inside and the strength it gave her, a steady rhythm grounding her. She imagined the scene when she would confront Richard, the moment when the assumptions of control he had long relied upon would be shattered by undeniable evidence. Her mind raced through possible reactions, the shock, the disbelief, and the realization of the oversight that he had never considered. Emily smiled faintly, the quiet satisfaction of preparation and patience radiating through her posture. She collected the documents, arranging them carefully in a leather portfolio, the weight firm but manageable, a symbol of the authority she now held. She adjusted her coat and stepped back toward the corridor, the echo of her footsteps deliberate and commanding, each movement projecting confidence, the mansion itself seeming to shift with her presence, the halls no longer confining but opening in recognition of her power. Emily reached the main foyer, the storm still roaring outside, yet inside there was a clarity, a sense of timing, a readiness for revelation. The envelope secure in her grasp, she paused to glance at the large windows, the rain streaking down like a curtain, filtering the light in a way that made the polished floors shimmer. She felt a quiet thrill of anticipation, knowing the forthcoming moments would be watched and remembered. She allowed herself one last deep breath, the combination of storm, silence, and control filling her senses. Then she moved forward, each step measured, purposeful, with the awareness that every decision, every document, every calculated move had led to this instant where patience and timing would ensure that the truth of her ownership and the strength of her resolve would be undeniable to anyone who dared challenge it. And as Emily Carter reached the grand double doors that led to the main hall where Richard would soon appear, she held the portfolio tightly, ready to unfold the reality he had never imagined, the calm before revelation stretching like a taut wire, each heartbeat in sync with the distant thunder, signaling that the moment of truth was imminent, and that everything she had quietly prepared was about to reshape the balance of power in the mansion entirely. Emily Carter stepped into the main hall, the rain from outside creating a soft mist on the marble floors, each droplet reflecting the chandelier lights in a shimmering pattern, her grip on the leather portfolio steady as she moved toward the center where Richard Lawson often held his informal meetings, the echo of her heels filling the vast space. She could feel the weight of anticipation building, her senses attuned to every detail, the scent of polished wood mingling with the faint aroma of rain and leather, her heart beating in a rhythm that matched the distant rumble of thunder. She paused briefly near the grand staircase, taking in the layout of the room, imagining the impact of the revelation she was about to make. She adjusted her posture, straightening her shoulders, and allowed her eyes to wander over the familiar furniture, the plush chairs, and the long mahogany table, each object a silent witness to the history of the mansion. She could almost hear the conversations that had taken place here, the agreements, the assumptions, and the overlooked contributions she had made quietly, unseen. Until now, Emily took a slow step forward, letting the portfolio rest lightly against her side, her other hand brushing against her belly as a reminder of the life she was carrying and the resilience it had instilled in her. She imagined the expressions of surprise, disbelief, and realization that would cross Richard's face and those present when she revealed the truth. The magnitude of ownership that he had never recognized. She envisioned the subtle shift in power that would occur as she presented the documents, the ripple of acknowledgement spreading through the room, a quiet authority emanating from her movements. Emily reached the center of the hall, the rain outside intensifying, the light catching on the edges of the portfolio, making it gleam as if highlighting the significance of its contents. She took a deliberate breath, feeling a surge of clarity and determination. The anticipation in the air thick but manageable. She opened the portfolio slowly, letting the first pages fall naturally, revealing the deeds and certificates with precise lettering and official stamps, each one a testament to the years of preparation and careful planning. The ownership of land, buildings, and the mansion itself laid bare in a way that was undeniable. Emily's eyes scanned the documents once more, confirming every detail. The magnitude of what she held solidifying her sense of control and accomplishment. She allowed herself a quiet smile, a mix of satisfaction and focus, as she envisioned the reactions to come, the unfolding realization of Richard and the observers that everything they assumed was theirs was legally and unmistakably hers. Emily began to move deliberately through the room, presenting the documents with measured confidence, her voice calm and steady as she explained the significance, her words carrying the weight of truth and preparation, the room quiet in anticipation, each attendee absorbing the revelation, the grandeur of the mansion emphasizing the contrast between expectation and reality. Emily's presence commanding attention without aggression, her posture poised, and her gaze unwavering, the combination of patience, intelligence, and timing evident in every movement. She closed the portfolio gently, letting the final pages rest on the table, a symbolic pause before the conclusion, leaving the observers in a moment of silent comprehension, her eyes locking briefly with Richard's, the expression on his face a mixture of astonishment and disbelief. Emily's subtle smile hinting at the deeper implications yet to unfold, the storm outside echoing the tension within the hall, a final, unspoken promise of change, and the quiet assertion of her authority, the anticipation of what she might do next lingering in the air, as the mansion itself seemed to recognize the shift in power. Emily Carter stood in the center of the hall, calm, resolute, and prepared, the first act of revelation complete, the room absorbing the weight of the truth. The moment suspended as everyone awaited the next move, and the full scope of her presence and influence was finally understood. Emily Carter took a deliberate step back from the table, allowing the room to absorb the weight of the documents she had just revealed, the chandeliers overhead casting soft reflections across the marble floors, the subtle hum of the mansion settling around her, each footfall echoing with a quiet authority. She glanced toward the massive windows, where rain continued to streak the glass, reflecting fragmented images of the stunned observers, the realization of ownership slowly registering in their expressions. She could feel the shift in energy, the air charged with anticipation as whispers spread across the hall, the meticulous planning of years manifesting in a moment of silent awe. Emily's gaze then fell upon Richard Lawson, whose usual confidence faltered under the clarity of the truth she held. She maintained her composure, posture straight, shoulders squared, eyes unwavering, a calm force that demanded recognition without needing to raise her voice. She imagined the ripple effect this revelation would have not just on him, but on everyone present, the acknowledgement of oversight, the recalibration of assumptions, the slow dawning that power and control were not what they seemed. She moved through the room with measured precision, each step a testament to strategy and patience, and as she approached the center once more, she allowed herself a brief pause, letting the murmurs settle, the soft shuffle of movement and the occasional intake of breath punctuating the silence. She opened the portfolio to a new section, highlighting additional properties and assets that confirmed the depth and breadth of her ownership, every page deliberate, every detail clear, leaving no room for doubt. Emily's hand rested lightly on her belly as she spoke softly, explaining the implications and the legal standing of each document, her voice steady and resonant, commanding attention through calm authority. The mansion seemed to embrace her presence, the grand space amplifying the importance of her message without needing decoration or dramatics. She noted the subtle gestures of recognition, the leaning forward, the focused eyes, the silent nods as understanding began to replace disbelief. and yet she did not rush, allowing the comprehension to unfold naturally, the moment stretching with tension and release, each heartbeat echoing the patience that had brought her here. Emily then shifted her attention to the windows again, the storm outside acting as a mirror to the turbulence of realization inside. She let the soft light refract across the documents one final time, reinforcing the tangible reality of her ownership. The clarity of preparation and quiet confidence shining through, she allowed herself a small, measured smile, a reflection of both satisfaction and strategic foresight, knowing that the revelation had not only corrected assumptions, but had also subtly established the rhythm of control that would follow. As she folded the portfolio and placed it carefully on the table, she stepped back, the room now fully aware of the scope of her authority, each observer processing the truth at their own pace. Emily Carter remained poised at the center, calm, assertive, and ready, the mansion itself seeming to acknowledge the shift. The storm outside now a backdrop to the quiet power and meticulous planning that had transformed a lifetime of preparation into a single, compelling assertion of rightful ownership. The implications for Richard and the others hanging in the balance as she prepared for the next step, every subtle movement, every controlled gesture reinforcing the certainty and inevitability of the outcome she had orchestrated, leaving the room and the mansion suspended in a moment of anticipation for what she would reveal next. Emily Carter felt the quiet tension in the room deepen as every eye followed her movements, the subtle rustle of papers and the soft echo of her heels on the marble floor accentuating the anticipation. She adjusted her stance slightly, holding the portfolio firmly in one hand, while her other hand rested gently on her belly, a reminder of the life she was nurturing and the patience that had brought her to this moment. The light from the chandeliers above caught on the edges of the documents, emphasizing their authority and the certainty of the claims they represented. She allowed herself a moment to look around the hall, noting the expressions of surprise and realization spreading across the faces of the observers, the air thick with unspoken acknowledgement of her intelligence and foresight. Emily moved toward the center once more, presenting a page that detailed additional holdings and rights she had quietly maintained over the years, each one carefully documented, each signature and seal reinforcing the gravity of her control, her voice calm but carrying across the room, explaining the implications with precision and clarity. The mansion itself seemed to hold its breath as the truth settled in. She could see the subtle gestures, the slight shifts in posture, the exchanged glances, all indicating that the full weight of her authority was finally being comprehended. Emily continued through the portfolio methodically, revealing the depth and scope of her ownership in a measured rhythm that allowed the observers to process each revelation in sequence, her demeanor composed, confident, yet not imposing, commanding attention through clarity and presence rather than volume. She paused periodically, letting the quiet resonance of the mansion fill the spaces between her words, the distant rumble of thunder outside providing a dramatic underscore to the unfolding realization within the hall. Each breath she took measured and deliberate, grounding her in the moment and reinforcing her calm control. Emily's eyes met Richard Lawson's briefly, noting the mixture of astonishment and unspoken calculation in his expression. She allowed a faint, composed smile to play across her features, signaling awareness of the shift in power without aggression. She folded the portfolio carefully, placing it on the long oak table at the center. The action deliberate, a silent punctuation to the information she had laid bare, the room absorbing the full extent of the revelation. Emily took a slow step back, letting the weight of her presence, the clarity of her preparation, and the quiet certainty of her ownership resonate through the space, the chandeliers casting reflective light that danced across the marble and the polished wood, emphasizing the contrast between expectation and reality. She allowed herself a brief glance at the windows where the storm continued to roll in, rain streaking the glass in fragmented lines, reinforcing the dramatic tension of the moment. And as she turned to move back toward the staircase, each observer now fully aware of her authority and the undeniable truth of her claim, Emily felt a surge of quiet satisfaction, the culmination of patience, planning, and strategic action manifesting in a controlled but palpable atmosphere. Her steps measured and deliberate, each movement reinforcing her presence. The mansion itself seeming to acknowledge the shift, and while she had revealed the full scope of her ownership, there remained a subtle, unspoken question hanging in the air about what she might do. Next, the anticipation, the suspense, and the quiet command over the space setting the stage for the next revelation. Emily Carter stood poised and composed, ready for whatever the next moment would bring, the room suspended in recognition, the tension lingering as a testament to the careful orchestration of truth, timing, and calculated assertion of power that had guided her every step to this pivotal point. Emily Carter stepped away from the central table, the polished marble beneath her shoes cool and reflective, her eyes briefly scanning the grand hall, where Richard Lawson and the assembled witnesses were still processing the extent of the revelation. She adjusted her grip on the leather portfolio, the documents inside symbolizing more than property. They represented years of careful planning, patience, and quiet diligence that had been underestimated at every turn, the chandeliers above, catching the light in a soft cascade, creating patterns that danced across the walls and floors, each reflection highlighting the significance of the moment. Emily moved slowly toward the balcony doors overlooking the estate grounds, the rain falling steadily, washing the lawns and the driveway, the sound of soft percussion accompanying the weight of her presence. She paused for a moment to let the view and the atmosphere settle in, the expanse of the land beneath her serving as a visual reminder of the ownership and authority she had quietly maintained. She breathed in, steadying herself, allowing the rhythm of her heartbeat and the soft patter of rain to synchronize, grounding her in the magnitude of the situation. Emily then returned her focus to the interior, noting the expressions on the faces around her, the subtle shifts of posture, the exchanged glances, the rising acknowledgement of her foresight. She allowed herself a calm smile, one that carried the quiet confidence of someone fully prepared and in control. Each step she took was deliberate, her movement measured to command attention without force, the portfolio resting lightly at her side. She placed emphasis on clarity and precision as she guided the room through the additional details of her ownership, her voice calm, measured, and resonant, ensuring that each point was understood and absorbed fully. The mansion itself seemed to echo her presence, the grandeur of the space reinforcing the contrast between previous assumptions and the reality she now presented. Emily moved back toward the center of the hall, positioning herself in a natural line of sight for all present, her posture straight, shoulders relaxed, eyes alert, conveying authority through composure and clarity. She allowed each moment of attention to solidify the recognition of her rightful place, the combination of timing, preparation, and patience evident in every gesture. She let her gaze sweep over the room one more time, acknowledging the mix of surprise, contemplation, and realization, and then, with a deliberate breath, she unfolded a final set of documents, revealing additional holdings and confirming the comprehensive nature of her claim. Each page displayed with care, each signature and seal emphasizing legitimacy and intent, the subtle light catching on the edges of the documents lending an aura of formality and weight to the revelation. Emily's hand rested lightly on her belly as she spoke, grounding herself in the dual reality of life she carried and the legacy she was asserting, the soft rhythm of her breath matching the calm authority she projected. The room absorbed the significance without rush or interruption, every observer now aware of the totality of her position and foresight. And while the storm outside continued, the soft hum of rain and the muted light filtered through the windows served as a dramatic underscore to the quiet but unmistakable shift in power. Emily Carter remained poised, confident, and entirely composed, every movement, every word, every glance reinforcing the inevitability and thoughtfulness of her actions, leaving the mansion, the witnesses, and Richard Lawson in a suspended state of anticipation, fully acknowledging the extent of her preparation and the unspoken possibilities of what she might do next, the moment itself stretching with tension, clarity, and a quiet but commanding presence, signaling that Emily's careful orchestration of truth, timing, and authority had reached its apex, and that the full measure of her influence was now unmistakably recognized by all who were present. Emily Carter took a slow, purposeful step forward, the soft echo of her heels on the marble floor blending with the rhythmic patter of rain against the tall windows, her posture calm yet commanding, the portfolio held securely in one hand, every document inside a testament to years of quiet diligence and precise planning. She allowed herself a brief moment to survey the room, noting the shifting expressions, the subtle glances of realization, and the quiet murmurs spreading among the observers. As they absorbed the depth of her ownership, she adjusted the portfolio and moved toward the center, allowing her presence to project confidence without the need for loud assertion. Her gaze briefly meeting Richard Lawson's, registering a mixture of disbelief and contemplation in his eyes, she let a faint, controlled smile form, one that conveyed both acknowledgement of his oversight and her unwavering poise. Emily then opened the portfolio once more, presenting additional records and clarifications that detailed her comprehensive holdings. Each page unfolded with precision, revealing investments, properties, and assets meticulously maintained over the years, the light catching on the seals and signatures lending an air of legitimacy and undeniable authority to her claim. The observers followed her movements attentively, their focus drawn to the clarity and confidence in her presentation. Emily's other hand rested lightly on her belly, a reminder of the life she carried and the resilience it represented, grounding her in the moment and reinforcing the calm determination she projected. She spoke with measured clarity, each word deliberate, ensuring that the audience grasped the full extent of her position. The mansion itself seemed to resonate with the shift in energy, the grandeur of the space amplifying the significance of the revelations without distraction. As she continued, she allowed pauses between sections, letting the room digest the information, the quiet anticipation building a subtle tension that underscored the strategic precision of her actions, the soft hum of the rain outside punctuating the unfolding awareness within the hall. Emily observed the subtle gestures of acknowledgement, the leaning forward, the attentive eyes, the quiet intake of breath, all signaling that the gravity of her preparation was fully appreciated. She maintained her composure, avoiding haste, projecting authority through presence and measured action rather than volume. The final pages revealed the totality of her holdings, consolidating every aspect of control she had quietly amassed over the years. And as she closed the portfolio carefully, placing it on the central table with deliberate grace, she allowed a moment of stillness to settle over the room, the observers fully aware of the shift in balance. Emily stepped back, the rain outside reflecting light across the marble floors, accentuating the contrast between past assumptions and current reality. Each person now cognizant of the careful orchestration and strategic foresight that had brought her to this pivotal point. She felt the quiet satisfaction of achievement paired with the calm anticipation of what would come next, every movement, every glance, every breath reinforcing the inevitability and certainty of her authority, the mansion itself seeming to acknowledge the definitive change. And while the full implications had yet to unfold, Emily Carter stood poised, composed, and resolute, commanding the space with quiet confidence. The observers suspended in a moment of realization, the atmosphere charged with the weight of patience, preparation, and the subtle yet undeniable power she had brought to bear, leaving an open question in the minds of all present about the next steps she might take, and the full measure of her influence remaining inescapable and clearly established within the Grand Hall. Emily Carter felt the air in the Grand Hall shift as the weight of the revealed documents settled in the minds of everyone present, the chandeliers casting soft glimmers across the marble floor and the polished wood surfaces, each reflection highlighting the significance of her presence and the authority she now projected. She took a measured step forward, her heels clicking deliberately, echoing against the tall walls and commanding attention without a word, her eyes scanning the room, noting the subtle movements, the silent recognition, the widening eyes of Richard Lawson and the quiet gasps from those who had assumed control had always rested with him. She allowed a calm, confident smile to form, one that carried the satisfaction of patience, planning, and calculated timing. Emily opened the portfolio once more, revealing additional details that emphasized the comprehensiveness of her claim. Every page meticulously organized, the seals and signatures gleaming under the light, reinforcing the legitimacy and magnitude of her ownership. She spoke softly, yet her voice carried across the vast hall, each word deliberate, conveying clarity and authority, ensuring that the observers fully understood the scope and depth of what had been carefully cultivated over the years. Her other hand rested gently on her belly, grounding her, symbolizing the quiet strength she had drawn from both preparation and the life she carried, the rhythm of her breath steady, syncing with the soft patter of rain outside, adding a subtle, dramatic underscore to the unfolding scene. She walked slowly toward the center of the hall, her posture unwavering, commanding attention through presence rather than volume, allowing the room to fully absorb the implications of her revelations. Emily paused briefly, letting the silence stretch, emphasizing the shift in awareness, each observer now processing the change in power, the mansion itself seeming to acknowledge her composure and the careful orchestration of truth she had displayed. She continued through the portfolio methodically, presenting the final pieces of evidence that left no room for doubt. Every document, every investment, every piece of land she had quietly maintained over the years laid bare. The clarity and organization of the presentation leaving a lasting impression. Emily allowed herself a brief glance toward the massive windows, the rain cascading down in fragmented streams, reflecting the subtle light in the room and adding to the sense of drama. The storm outside a quiet counterpart to the internal shift that had occurred. She folded the portfolio carefully, placing it on the central table with deliberate grace, signaling the completion of the initial revelation. The observers still absorbing the magnitude of her authority, she took a step back, letting her presence, the calm assurance, and the strategic unfolding of information resonate fully throughout the room. Every glance, every breath, every subtle gesture reinforcing the undeniable recognition of her rightful place. Emily Carter stood poised, composed, and unshakably confident, the room suspended in a moment of reflection, the anticipation of the next phase palpable, the mansion's grandeur amplifying the significance of the event. And while the full implications had yet to unfold, the shift in perception and authority was complete, the careful orchestration of preparation, timing, and presence leaving an unmistakable impression of control, power, and foresight, setting the stage for the next developments and ensuring that everyone in the hall understood the depth of her strategic insight and the inevitability of her next moves. Emily Carter stood in the center of the grand hall, the rain outside beginning to taper off, leaving a soft mist that shimmered against the large windows. The mansion quiet but charged with anticipation. She allowed a deep breath to settle through her body, feeling the life growing inside and the strength it had imparted. Every step she had taken and every word she had spoken now resonating in the awareness of the observers. She glanced toward Richard Lawson, whose expression had shifted from disbelief to careful consideration. The reality of the ownership and authority he had underestimated now undeniable. Emily allowed her calm, measured smile to convey the quiet satisfaction of patience, strategy, and preparation, the portfolio resting on the central table behind her a silent reminder of the careful planning that had brought her to this moment. She moved toward the ornate staircase, her steps deliberate, the soft echo against the marble floors accentuating the gravity of her presence, each observer attentive, their focus fixed as they processed the full scope of her claims. Emily paused briefly at the top of the staircase, taking in the space below, the grandeur of the mansion now serving as a backdrop to the subtle but unmistakable shift in power. She let her gaze linger on the rain-soaked grounds outside, the filtered light reflecting off the polished marble in a way that mirrored the clarity and authority she now held, the soft patter of residual raindrops providing a quiet, natural rhythm to the moment. She descended slowly, allowing the movement to carry symbolic weight, each step reinforcing the deliberate pace of her revelation, her hand occasionally brushing the portfolio, as if guiding the room toward understanding. Emily's presence commanding attention through quiet composure, the mansion itself seeming to acknowledge the culmination of her preparation and strategy. She paused once more at the foot of the staircase, letting the observers take in the full context of her authority and foresight, the air heavy with anticipation and the realization of the truth she had revealed. She opened the portfolio for the final time, presenting additional details, and emphasizing the scope and precision of her holdings, each page laid out with care, the documents conveying clarity, legality, and undeniable legitimacy. Emily's voice steady and calm as she explained each element, the soft cadence allowing every observer to follow and fully absorb the implications. She allowed her eyes to meet Richard's one final time, noting the subtle acknowledgement of oversight and the quiet recalibration of assumptions in his gaze. The mansion's silent save for the distant dripping of water from the eaves, reinforcing the contrast between past misconceptions and current clarity. Emily closed the portfolio carefully, setting it on the central table, the action deliberate and symbolic, signaling completion of the revelation while leaving room for contemplation. She stepped back, letting the presence she had established resonate through the room, each observer processing the shift in balance and authority at their own pace. The soft light reflecting off the documents and marble adding a visual underscore to the narrative she had constructed. Emily allowed herself a moment to feel the quiet triumph of patience, foresight, and careful planning. The satisfaction tempered with anticipation for the unspoken possibilities ahead, her posture straight, shoulders relaxed, and gaze unwavering, conveying both confidence and composure. The mansion itself a silent witness to the culmination of her actions, the observers absorbed in reflection. The weight of the moment balanced with the subtle hint of what she might do next. Emily Carter remained poised, resolute, and fully in control, the shift in power, perception, and authority complete, leaving the hall suspended in a state of thoughtful anticipation, the final subtle question of next moves lingering in the air, a quiet but undeniable testament to her strategic insight, patience, and the effectiveness of measured, deliberate, and precise action, ensuring that her presence, authority, and foresight would be remembered long after the storm had passed.